So that check engine light just popped on, didn't it? It's always a little frustrating, especially when your scanner spits out a code like P144C. If you're driving a Ford, there's a good chance you've seen this one before. But don't you worry, because we're about to break down exactly what this code means and, more importantly, how you can hunt down the problem. Let's get right into it. Yep, there it is. That light's on, you hook up your scanner, and boom, P144C is staring you right in the face. This code is super common on Fords, and the good news is it points to a very specific system in your car.
Okay, the official name sounds super technical, right? Evaporative Emission System Purge Check Valve Performance. But don't let it scare you. All it's really saying is that your car's computer has sniffed out a problem with a system that's supposed to capture and recycle gasoline fumes from your fuel tank.
So to figure out what's wrong, we've got to understand how it's supposed to work. Let's do a quick dive into how your car deals with these gas fumes. Honestly, the easiest way to picture the EVAP system is to think of it as your car's own personal recycling program, but for gas fumes. Instead of just letting those raw vapors escape into the air, it captures them and puts them to good use. So here's the journey those fumes take. Vapors naturally build up in your gas tank, right? Well, they travel down a line to this thing called a charcoal canister. Think of it like a sponge that just soaks them up. Then, once your engine's running, under the right conditions, a little valve, the purge valve, opens up and the engine's vacuum just sucks those stored fumes right into the engine to get burned off cleanly. Pretty smart, huh? All right, so now that we know how it all should work, let's start hunting for the problem. And we're gonna do this the smart way, starting with the simplest and most common fixes first. First things first, before you even think about grabbing a wrench, go check your gas cap. Seriously. The whole EVAP system has to be perfectly sealed to work. If your cap is loose or the little rubber seal is cracked and old, that's a leak, and that can totally trigger this code. Oh, and for you folks with the newer Fords, the capless ones, make sure that little flap inside is closing all the way and isn't getting stuck open. Now, if your gas cap is looking good and sealing tight, it's time to meet our number one suspect. I'm not kidding. More often than not, this one little part is the entire problem. And here it is, the EVAP canister purge valve. This is that little electronic gatekeeper we were talking about, the one that lets the fumes into the engine. It's usually a small plastic part you'll find right on top of or near the engine, with a couple of hoses and a wire plugged into it. So how do you know if it's gone bad? Well, the biggest giveaway is a rough idle. See, if that valve gets stuck open, it's basically creating a vacuum leak. It's letting extra air into the engine that the computer has no idea about. And that makes the engine stumble and run rough, especially when you're just sitting at a stoplight. It is a classic sign. But what if you check the cap and you even went ahead and replaced the purge valve, but that pesky check engine light just came right back on? Ugh. Well, that just means our issue is a little more stubborn and it's time to dig a bit deeper. Okay, so in this next part, we're going to look at the other players in this system and talk about hunting down those sneaky, hard-to-find leaks. Okay, this is super important. Don't get the purge valve mixed up with the vent valve. They're two different parts with two different jobs. The purge valve, like we said, is up by the engine. The vent valve, that one's usually way in the back, near the gas tank and the charcoal canister. Its job is to let fresh air in so the car can run its own leak tests. A problem with either one can cause trouble. Beyond the valves, a few other things could be going on. You could have cracked, brittle vacuum hoses. They don't last forever. The charcoal canister itself could get clogged or damaged. It's always a good idea to check the wiring going to the purge valve for any corrosion. And hey, if you have any aftermarket parts, like a cold air intake, double check that they didn't accidentally mess with any of the vacuum lines. But really, after the purge valve itself, the next most likely culprit is a teeny tiny leak somewhere in one of those hoses that run from the back of the car to the front. And these can be a real pain to find just by looking. This is where the pros have a neat trick up their sleeve. A mechanic will use a smoke machine. They hook it up and gently fill the whole EVAP system with a harmless visible smoke. Then they just watch. Wherever you see a little puff of smoke escaping, bingo, that's your leak. It's the fastest, most surefire way to find a pinhole you'd never see otherwise. And finally, if you've checked everything else and you're still stumped, you have to consider the sensor itself. The fuel tank pressure sensor is basically the computer's informant. It's what tells the computer what the pressure is inside the system. If that sensor goes bad, it can feed the computer junk data, making it think there's a leak or a valve problem even when everything is actually sealed up tight. Okay, wow, we have covered a lot of ground. So let's bring it all home and put this into a simple, step-by-step action plan. Here is your logical checklist. Follow it in this order to save yourself time and headaches. Start with the gas cap, it's free and easy. Then go for the number one suspect, the purge valve. If that's not it, then you can start inspecting the other big parts like the canister and vent valve. After that, it's time to meticulously check all the hoses for leaks. And only then, after all of that, should you start pointing a finger at the pressure sensor. This chart really says it all, doesn't it? The overwhelming majority of the time, a new purge valve is going to be your fix for a P144C code. After that, you're most likely looking at a vacuum hose leak. Everything else is much, much less common. So the big question is this something you can tackle yourself, or is it time to call in the pros? You've got the knowledge now. Checking a gas cap costs nothing, and replacing a purge valve, if it's easy to get to, can be a really simple DIY job. But, hunting for a hidden leak or swapping a sensor that might be part of the fuel pump assembly, that might be a job best left for a professional. The choice is yours. The real question is, armed with all this info, where does your repair journey begin?